Basically, there's three types of chargers. There's portable solars, there's battery chargers, and then there's electric plug-in chargers. This is actually a unique charger that will work both on battery and electric. Typically, most fence chargers are rated in joules. You have to be careful because some manufacturers rate them in stored joules and some rate them as output joules, and it can be as much as a 50% difference between that. When you look at a lot of chargers, they will rate them by miles. It lets you compare the outputs, but don't expect a 10-mile charger to handle 10 miles of fence. Typically, solar chargers are going to be your weakest energizer or the lowest power. As we look here, this is one of the bigger solar chargers, portable ones, and it's only rated as a half a joule output. This electric plug-in one is rated as 3 joules output power. So it's a whole lot more powerful, and it probably costs about a third. Dealing with polywire and poly netting, the output capacity of your chargers are going to be very important. Now, when you're dealing with the poly netting, you need about a 1/4 joule output per roll of fencing, which is about 165 feet. One of these bigger solar chargers will max out at 2 rolls of poly netting connected together, so be very careful. If you're doing sheep and goats, you want to stay above 5,000 kilovolts on your output power. The most important part on an electric fence is the first shock that the animal gets. If they get a good shock the first time they're exposed to electric fence, the battle's won, you don't have to worry about it. If they come up and they get a very light shock, you're going to have a lot more problems in the future of trying to keep them in because they do not have that mental deterrent to stay away from the fence. The most important part on electric fence is the ground. If you're not grounded, you can touch electric fence all day. What completes the circuit is when you touch the ground, then the shock goes through the ground and up into the animal. But if you're building a permanent fence, typically you want 1 ground rod per joule. You want to be a galvanized or stainless steel rod. Do not use copper. On a permanent fence, you want this to be 6 to 8 feet long because you're going to put it permanently in the ground. But since we're moving it, a lot of times you're moving it every day or every week. Typically we use a smaller rod. The person who put this fence in did try to attach multiple rods together to get a little bit better ground. If you're going to use multiple rods, make sure that your rods are always further apart than the length of the rod. The ground works off of a 45-degree angle, so it makes a cone of grounding around the rod. So if you put 2 rods close together like that, you basically have canceled the 1 rod out. You don't get the benefit of the 2nd rod. Another important aspect to a ground rod is they need to be in moist soil. Dry soil is not conductive. A good thing to do with the portable ground rods in the summertime is take a 5-gallon bucket, drill you a small hole in the bottom, fill it up with water, and then set it beside your ground rods, and that'll let the water slowly leak into the ground around the ground rod, which will increase the conductivity of the soil, which will make your ground system and your whole fence work better. This is another one of the fence chargers that are both battery and electric. There is adjustments. First notch is like a battery test. It'll tell you how much charge your battery has. You'll see the lights go all the way across, so the battery's full charge. The more green lights, the higher the voltage is. And then the next ones will be different pulse settings. The turtle is going to be a slow pulse, so it'll save power. And you can see here it's slowed down. This one is sunlight. It'll shock faster during the day. The nighttime setting is the opposite. It'll shock faster at night and slow down during the day. And then the rabbit is just going to be a fast pulse, which will use the most juice. So there's some different settings that you can use depending on what the animal, the environment, and the fencing. Starting out, you always want to leave it on a fast pulse until they get used to it. After the animals are used to it, you can slow the pulse down. This is a fault finder. It's probably the best money that you can spend. They'll give you digital output in thousands of kilovolts. So right there, we're getting 6.3 kilovolts to 6,300 volts, and it's only picking up about 0.2 of an amp, which you will see on polywire. You almost always get some resistance. When you have a short on the fence, it'll read resistance. We're going to cause a ground on this fence. You can hear it, it's shorting and clicking a little bit. Okay, we're going to test the fence. Okay, so here it is. We have a voltage drop. Remember, we were at 6.3. Now we've got 1.8 amps, and we've got an arrow that's pointing in the direction of the short. It will save you more time than anything, because it can be very frustrating to find the short without one of these. As we talked about earlier, the ground is what completes the circuit. So since we have shorted the fence there, we can test the fence charger, and it's an easy way to tell if you have a fence that's shorted, that you'll start to get voltage go back. There's 1200 volts going back through the ground rod. It should be on a clean fence, it should be below 200 or 0.2 kilovolts. On the battery powered chargers and also on some of the bigger solar ones, you'll want to use a 12 volt marine battery. It's a deep cycle battery. They're designed to handle being repeatedly discharged and releasing power over a long period of time. The most important thing about a deep cycle battery is you don't want to ever let it draw down more than about 50%, because you will shorten the life. So it's always better to make sure you switch them out before they go completely dead, or it'll make your battery last a lot longer.